The question of who was the dumbest fraud astronaut of all time will be debated for generations among scholars. Of course, all astronauts are liars. Astronauts can't even agree on whether stars are visible in space. I mean, who would actually look at the stars in space?
Because you can see, you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
And when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
So you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars. The cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Before we get to the top two, there are a couple other dishonorable mentions. These two astronauts simply forgot that they're supposed to be traveling at 17,500 miles per hour in the physically impossible vacuum of space.
And I played a lot of sports. And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now.
Houston is called Space City because NASA's Johnson Space Center is the home of human spaceflight. We design the missions, train the crews, and orchestrate the flights from right here in Houston. Houston was the first to receive words from the surface of the moon, and the next giant leap will also start right here in Houston.
Right here in Houston.
Right here in Houston. That's pretty funny. But for me, the next two lying astronauts encapsulate both the fraud and stupidity of NASA and its phony astronauts. First, we have Michael Collins at the post-Apollo 11 flight press conference on August 12, 1969. Michael Collins is the guy on the right. What makes Michael so special was his answer to the simple question of what the stars look like from the lunar surface.
I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may. When you were carrying out that incredible moonwalk, did you find that the surface was equally firm anywhere, or were there harder and softer spots that you could detect? And secondly, when you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any. Neil, you were... I don't remember seeing any. Neil, you were...
Poor Michael almost gave Neil a heart attack right there. Just look at Neil's face. I'd love to know what Neil said to him right there. Forgetting the script, Michael forgot that he actually never stepped onto the lunar surface, and so he shouldn't have even answered the question, and most certainly shouldn't have said he didn't remember seeing any stars. According to the official story, Michael was the pilot of the command module that was supposedly orbiting the moon at 3,600 miles per hour, and that's why Neil was so bothered by Michael's answer. Michael never went to the lunar surface.
When you were carrying out that incredible moonwalk...
Furthermore, Michael allegedly saw the dark side of the moon roughly 30 times. Michael would have had the best view of the stars far beyond any other person in history and would have had almost nothing to do but look at them. Yet he doesn't even remember seeing any stars.
I don't remember seeing any. Neil, you were...
What's also interesting is the claim that Michael Collins was stuck in that cramped module for over 8 days. But I guess Ronald Evans from Apollo 17 supposedly beat Collins by being in that cramped module for an impossible 12 days and 13 hours. Could you imagine that? But astronaut Donald Pettit has been trying to outdo Michael's classic stupidity for some time now. According to the official narrative, Donald is a genius and even invented the coffee cup in space. You can find the original NASA video here. You know, Michael invented that coffee cup that can also impossibly separate from the color of its contents. But I guess that CGI glitch wasn't really Donald's fault. I'm just going to stick to just two examples that really showcase what a genius Donald is. For our first video, we have the dumbest excuse ever as to why it has been over 50 years since man was last on the moon.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Seriously, is there any person, even among the globe propagandists, who believe this utter nonsense?
But we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
What are you going to say, that I took poor Donald out of context? That was a great quote from Donald, but this next one is my favorite. Sometimes I wish we could go back and watch something like this again for the first time, because I remember laughing so hard when I first saw this. Watching Donald here is like watching a deer in the headlights. He has absolutely no clue how to answer this simple question. Is it any more obvious that none of these astronauts go through any actual training for space? Just watch this.
What happens if you get a leak on that?
Then you have a leak.
You just have a leak.
And what you would do
is...
You
lose air.
Yeah, you would probably seal the whole cupola off. And then there's probably a plan, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's probably a plan for replacing the mechanism. Might require a spacewalk.
So my question is, how can you operate a lid on the outside of the space station by manipulating something mechanical on the inside of the space station without losing air pressure?
It's called real good engineering. Then you have a leak.
Then you have a leak. Do you think a sailor on a submarine would know what to do in case of a leak? Just watch these submariners training.
Get on it. You got wetbacks? You got strapping? Yeah. You're strapping. Cut it up. Music. Over here.
Do you think these sailors would know how to answer the question of what to do if there was a leak? I guess NASA didn't think it necessary to actually teach safety to their astronauts, since they're just a bunch of lousy actors hanging from wires and playing astronauts in front of green screens anyways. So, who do you think wins the award for the dumbest flying astronaut of all time? Please let me know in the comments.
I don't remember seeing any.
But we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. Then you have a leak.
In a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now.
Right here in Houston.